On The Informer, we get a chance to meet an array of different people. And our next guest is someone who's been around for a little while. He's made some mistakes. He's also notched up quite a number of accomplishments. For about 38 years, he's been an audio, I suppose, technician, engineer, just about everything in the music business. His name is Tim Dalton. No, not the man who played James Bond. This is the guy who actually has done just about everything else. Audio engineer, artist's manager, Faith No More, Public Enemy, Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Primus, David Bowie, Sir Paul McCartney, Simple Minds, Atomic Kitten.
Yeah.
Is there anyone we've left out? I mean, that's a fantastic list of people to work with.
There are some wonderful names there that have disappeared and gone into the mist of time. Some beautiful people. Lots and lots of people. I've worked with a lady called Kirsty McCall who was English, and she was killed when we were in Mexico. And it's such a shame. She was such a beautiful lady. Finley Quay, who I won my first Brit Award with. Kula Shaker, who I also got a Brit Award for. Primus from San Francisco. Oh, and lots of other bands.
I remember meeting David Bowie when he came to Australia in the late 80s. We had a lunch, or a dinner it was in those days. We had Emma Sams in the party. We had the boys from Duran Duran, Simon Bond. And it was a veritable table and a half, you can't believe. But he was a gentleman and a half. I couldn't believe what a fantastically, not only balanced, but what a great mind as well as a great talent.
Incredibly cerebral, and artist, painter, writer, performer, to the point of, photographer, dancer, just a multi-autodidactic. There isn't anything he couldn't do if he turned his mind to it. And also, like most people in that thing, he was quite unsure of his own abilities.
Yes, that's what drives them.
Yeah, and that's what, that's seeking for perfection. And thinking that
fear of failure.
Fear of failure was overwhelming. And I must admit, I love that type of energy of people. I kind of bounce off that. It's great to be around. It's invigorating. It's challenging, and it's also quite competitive. But competition is a nice thing.
And Sir Paul McCartney would still be enormously competitive. Even with all the kudos that they've gained and the enormous success they've had.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I also love the fact, not only have you been a person who's been a studio owner, you've been the artist manager, and you've had an opportunity to do one of the things that many people always wanted to be, especially in that golden period of records. They wanted to be radio executives, because they, just to mix with all that talent, and of course the fearsome history and the stories that were told about those great parties that started and never finished. Do you remember any of those parties, or are they long gone?
I do. A lot of that is what I call smoke and mirrors. And it's a phrase I overuse quite a lot. It's a title of one of the books I've written.
You've used it once now, can't use it again.
So I won't use it again. And a lot of what we do is to try and make it look like that. Joe Strummer, who's a friend of mine from the Clash, talked about the music industry turning rebellion into money. So it's about that type of making it look rebellious, but on the other side, it's very, very, very business-like. I mean, all those different roles you've talked about, George, I just fell into. None of that was planned. I didn't sit down with a careers teacher at school and kind of go, this is what I want to do. I quite fancied, when I was about 14 and I went for my first careers interview, I wanted to be a hospital porter, because I thought that was a really noble thing to do.
So how do you go from hospital porter to sound man?
Yeah, and my brother was in bands, I was in bands, and then I slowly drifted into it. I mean, the Beastie Boys is an interesting one, because I was working for an audio company, and the audio company were a very big audio company in England, and they got the Beastie Boys first ever gig in with Run DMC, Public Enemy, down at Hammersmith Odeon, and no one wanted to do it. And it's like, oh, we'll send so-and-so to do the front house sound, we'll send him to do mix the monitor sound. Oh, and the young kid, the Tim guy, we'll send him down. So I went there and I was just putting the microphones up and doing stuff. And the Beastie Boys got incredibly drunk before the sound check. When they came out, Roger, who was mixing front of house, who I'm very good friends with, he was like, oh, I can't deal with this. This is, would the gentleman in the red hat please be quiet so I can get a level off the gentleman with the... And MCA grabbed me and he just says, "Hey man, do you know how to mix motherfucking sound?" And I kind of went, "Yes, I motherfucking do." And he went, "Roger, you're fired." Wow. And I was sent front of house to mix front. And luckily the PA company were like, "Oh my goodness, this could be a golden opportunity here. And Tim's been working for us, maybe we'll look after him." So they looked after me. And from that gig onwards, I did 10 years with Public Enemy. I mean, that's and Run DMC and the Beastie Boys. I fell in with the Def Jam.
So what does that tell you? To all the young musos, aspiring musos, men and women out there, there are no boundaries. When you're thrown into the deep end, you delivered.
Oh yeah.
That's the only way. That's the real end of the story, isn't it?
It is, and it's a very single story. It's about don't fear disruption and jumping in. One of my sayings is, occasionally a bit of reckless behaviour can save your life. And that notion of making a really quick calculation when MCA's looking at me and going, "Can you mix sound?" It's a job interview.
Yes.
And it's in a one sentence, and it's a one word reply. Yes, I can.
Yes.
Walk front of house with a little bit of dignity, try and garner a bit of knowledge off the guy who's leaving, and can I make this better? And is what I'm doing adding or subtracting? If it's adding, well, great. If it's subtracting, it's a zero-sum game. Walk away from it, don't do it. And I was very lucky that once I got the Beastie Boys gig, my phone never stopped ringing. I never had to apply for a job, write a CV. My phone would ring constantly. You know, Faith No More rang me.
So where do you go from the audio man, the front of the show, to looking after, as a manager, some of the biggest bands and some of the biggest talent in the world?
My first management gig was a complete, what we call a blag in London. You know, I was 30 years old and I'd left school at 16 and I'd spent 14 years on the road mixing rock and roll bands. It kind of become a bit samey, another 20,000 seat arena, another gig, drink a few beers, jump up and down, climb on a bus. So I applied to do a documentary filmmaking course back in my home city of Hull. And I got on there, and luckily there was a government initiative that said if you ran a degree, you had to take so many mature students. No one wanted to do it because who wants 30-year-olds hanging around? Anyway, they took me on, and I'd only been in the university about 3 days, and this ex-girlfriend of my brother's came forward, and she goes, "Oh, hi Tim, how are you doing?" I went, "Great." She goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I've just started the documentary filmmaking degree." And she goes, "Oh, these guys are in a band and they're on your degree. Can you come and talk to them?"
Hello.
So I went over. One of them pulled out a big paper contract about this thick, flopped it on the desk and goes, "This is our record deal, what do you think?" And at the time I used to smoke big long cigarettes just because you could blow smoke everywhere and look important. And I'd never seen a record contract in my life. And I flicked through it, and every so often I'd go, "Seriously? Wow. You're only getting 4% residual in Iran? Oh my goodness, your percentage?" And they went, "Okay, big mouth, if you can get us a better deal, you can manage us." Wow. And so I rang the record company and said, "I'm on the way down." I got the train down the next day, walked into the 31st floor of BMG Records, and I didn't know how to behave, so I took the aggressive punk rock thing, and I threw the contract on the desk, and I banged it, and I used some swears. I said, "How dare you treat my artists? This is the worst." And within 30 minutes, the room was full of lawyers with highlighter pens and doing stuff. And the MD came down from the company, Sir Rob Stringer, and said, "Oh, I'll take you for lunch, calm down." And they took me out for lunch, got me quite pissed. And I went back and presented me...
You didn't sign your life away?
Yeah, presented me with the contract. I took it back to the band, showed them it, and they went, "This is incredible." And I said, "Oh yeah, another thing." And I pulled a cheque out for £200,000 and went, "Here's the cheque." And they went, "Great, you're our new manager. Fire Simon." I went, "Who's Simon?" They went, "Our old manager." And that was my first ever solo management gig. So I did it for 3 years while I was studying for the degree. And at the end of it, I'd got my degree. I got a first class with honours degree. I made quite a few documentaries, mainly about rock and roll bands and music. BMG rang me up and said, "Hey, you should come and work for us in the A&R department. We'll pay you this ridiculously huge salary and we'll give you a company BMW." Anyway, Sony rang me up and said, "Oh, we've heard you're going to be the new A&R guy at BMG. What have they offered you?" So I added a few zeros on and lied to them.
And you said Audi?
And I said, "Yeah, I couldn't drive a BMW on an Audi." And they went, "Oh, you should come and work for us." And so I got the job managing an A&R at Sony. And I remember walking into this huge office in Great Marlborough Street, and I had a secretary called Cindy, and I had to press the buzzer, and she came in with a notepad and everything. And I said, can you shut the door? I said, I've got no idea what I'm doing. And she looked at me and she says, don't worry, nobody here does. I've got your back.
Fantastic.
And that was my start in managing and A&Ring, and the two things kind of run together.